This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
In a world far away. Nah, just kidding. This story begins in this world. It all started in 1460 in Antwerp, when the first commodities exchange was created, but the real transformation came in 1602, when the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was founded. Considered the oldest in the world, it was the first to trade financial assets. Over the years, Britain expanded its colonial and maritime influence, and the British pound sterling overtook the Dutch guilder in the market. Thus, the London Stock Exchange became the financial centre of the world. The 20th century came, and the world got into some trouble. But shortly after World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, and the centre of the planet moved to Wall Street. Today, we're travelling at the speed of light towards a new age, an era shaped by the consolidation of Bitcoin as the currency that will define the future of the markets. We present Roxom, a new Bitcoin-denominated market that allows trading all sorts of securities, commodities, derivatives, options, and anything you can imagine. Roxom, rock-solid markets.
The future of capital markets runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin sitting around 112K, and today's headlines are pure chaos, as Satoshi's apparently coming back when quantum computers hit, which sounds less like science and more like a Netflix reboot. NASDAQ is dropping $50 million into Gemini's IPO because even Wall Street wants a ride on the Winklevi rocket ship. And Michael Saylor just made Bloomberg's Billionaires Index proof that buy Bitcoin is a better business than whatever Robinhood's doing. I don't know. All that and more. Let's go! Good morning, my crypto cowboys and girls, and welcome on back to another ride here on the Blockchain Report. I'm Hank Hudson, coming to you live from San Francisco, home of the $20 salads, $5,000 studio apartments, and startups that still think AI, but on the blockchain, is a business plan. Before we wrangle today's rodeo of charts, ETFs, and everyone's favorite game of, is this rally real or did Larry Fink sneeze on CNBC? Do yourself a favor and smash that like button the way Donald Trump smashes the caps lock key on Truth Social. And don't forget to follow RoxomTV and me at Hank at RoxomTV, because even Bitcoin needs a hype man who can take a punchline. All right, let's sort through the whales and the minnows and the hodlers from the opium addicts and figure out who's stacking sats and who's stuck explaining why their Dow career still doesn't pay the rent. All this and more on this market's rundown. Let's go. All right, so this morning, Bitcoin drawn back a little bit. We were cruising nice above in the $112,000 air, but now we have dropped back down to around the 11.5 arena. Ethereum also down this morning, about 1.5%, currently sitting just above that $4,300 mark. And Solana was having a nice day yesterday, down a little bit again, but we are around that 214 arena. Not too bad in the world of Solana. In TradFi, let's see how things are looking right now. We got the Dow Jones Industrial standing pat right around that mid $45,500 level. The S&P 5 are currently chilling just beneath $6,500. The NASDAQ sitting at 21,700-ish. And last but not least, we have MicroStrategy. They're currently sitting at right around that 325 mark. They're down about 1.5% today. It looks like them not being admitted to the S&P 5 has shareholders feeling a little spooked, and the price is certainly reflecting that. We got a lot to do today, including our bull run, so let's get going right now. Run the stinger. All right, welcome back to this morning's bull run, and joining us to go over today's top news of the day, we have one of my favorite friends of the program. We got Anton from Zoppo Bank. Anton, happy Tuesday. Holler if you hear me, my friend. How are you? Great to have you back on the show.
Hey Hank, I'm excited to be back, and I like your new screen. You're elevating the experience. Really, really nice.
Oh yeah, the team is really working on the computers and everything and telling me where to point. I feel like Vanna White out here. It's great. So Anton, always a pleasure to have you back on the show as the father of the world's youngest Bitcoiner. How are they doing? Everything well in your world?
Yeah, Hank. What I'm seeing is that my son is now the youngest Bitcoiner, and he's accumulating and stacking Bitcoins. I'm like even recording a video to him, like explaining, see, I'm thinking about your future. You're going to be good because I'm thinking for you, thanks to Satoshi. We're going to be all good. But yeah, I mean, my son is great. It's a really nice experience to stack Bitcoin and be with him.
Love it. DCAing, never a bad time to start, especially when they're young. All right, Anton, we got a lot of news to go over today, so hang tight. We'll be back at you in a second. I'm going to read this story and we'll jam about it. Sound good?
Yes.
All right, so first up, it appears that, well, businesses aren't just testing the waters with Bitcoin anymore. They're cannonballing on in. As Rivers Research latest report shows, companies across industries have been purchasing over 1,700 Bitcoin per day. That's worth about $195 million daily. Over the last 20 months, that flow has contributed more than $1.3 trillion to Bitcoin's market cap. Now, corporate reserves ballooned from 510,000 BTC to 1.3 million between January of last year and August of this year. The number of publicly traded companies with Bitcoin went from 39 to 158 during that same period. Or in other words, adoption didn't grow, it pretty much exploded. Businesses now control over 6% of Bitcoin's circulating supply. That's a 21-fold increase since January of 2020. And the biggest driver has been the Bitcoin treasury companies, of course. They account for 76% of all business purchases since January of last year and 60% of publicly reported holdings. These are the companies built specifically to amass massive Bitcoin reserves and give shareholders indirect exposure to Bitcoin's price without them ever needing to touch a cold wallet. Now, the whole model was pioneered, of course, by Michael Saylor back in August of 2020. Hey, buddy. When then MicroStrategy, now rebranded, of course, as Strategy, bought $250 million worth of Bitcoin. That stash now sits at over $70 billion. And Saylor's playbook inspired over 50 copycat treasury firms. Now, before 2024, Bitcoin adoption by corporations was limited to niches like mining companies, crypto startups, and the occasional Tesla headline. Now, that all changed dramatically in 2024. River reports that Bitcoin is now showing up across industries. We're talking real estate, software development, consulting, healthcare, logistics, consumer goods, media, automotive. The list keeps going. Now, allocations aren't exactly symbolic either. The average corporate allocation in July of this year was 22% of net income, with the median at 10%. And 63.6% of these companies treat Bitcoin as a permanent investment vehicle. They're continuously accumulating and have no intention of selling or rebalancing. Now, this level of institutional commitment is why analysts are looking at 125K as the next realistic price target. Now, the barriers that used to spook companies, fears of government bans, restrictions on ownership, and liquidity concerns have mostly disappeared. Multiple sovereign nations now hold Bitcoin. The United States launched its strategic Bitcoin reserve program back in March of this year. And prominent figures like Jerome Powell, Larry Fink, and of course Donald Trump have completely flipped their public stances on Bitcoin in recent years. Bitcoin's liquidity has also matured. It now trades as one of the most liquid assets globally, 24/7, in sharp contrast to traditional treasury instruments. Now, on the technical side, analyst ZinWeb3 points out that Bitcoin often bottoms at the 0.382 Fibonacci retracement level. That pattern played out in Q3 of 2024 and again in Q2 of this year. The level now sits around 100K, suggesting the worst case scenario is a 10% drop before a 50% rally to that 150K mark. Currently, Bitcoin has been stuck between 107 and 113,000. Breaking above 114 would be the first test of bullish strength, with 120K as the next key resistance level. Clear those levels, and 125K is very much in range, but you fail to break those levels and we could retest 108K before the next big move up. But the underlying story here remains unchanged. When businesses are vacuuming up over 1,700 Bitcoin every single day, and most of them refuse to sell, it's only a matter of time before the supply squeeze pushes prices even higher. All right, we're bringing Anton back. Anton, River reports that businesses are now buying over 1,700 Bitcoin a day. That's about 195 million bucks daily, adding 1.3 trillion to the overall market cap in the last 20 months. At this pace, are companies basically becoming the new miners, the real supply engines of Bitcoin? What do you think?
Hank, I think you just did the longest quantitative overview since RoxomTV started, and I watch all of the shows. That's great. So there is a ton of information to discuss here. I would like to point I want to point of what you just mentioned about the institutions buying Bitcoin. Assuming the data from the report is correct, this means that 15% of the Bitcoin was acquired from institutions approximately for the past year and a half, 2 years. And now this can be analyzed from different perspectives, but overall, like 15% of the Bitcoin which is available being acquired from institutions for a period of 2 years, it's crazy. It's actually amazing. maybe now the people watching this show are thinking, wait, like if you're saying that the amount of Bitcoin being acquired, it's very high number. Why the Bitcoin price is not at 150, 200, 1 million right now? Well, Hank, I don't know if you know, but yesterday I cheated on you. I was on RoxomTV UK. Yes, please forgive me. Please forgive me. But yesterday, actually, I mentioned that there is approximately 300,000 Bitcoins that have been sold from long-term holders. Those are like Bitcoin OGs, people that purchase Bitcoin at 100, less than 100 dollars. And now they are selling. And this is a pattern which we cannot underestimate. And the fact that those OGs are selling, it's pushing the price down. And then on the other hand side, you have like institutions purchasing 1,700 Bitcoins per day approximately, which is insane. It's like 200 million of US dollars floating into the Bitcoin ecosystem. So I think what we are seeing right now, it's a redistribution of OGs selling, institutions buying, but the institutions are like those, they're going to hold the Bitcoin they're here for the long game. They're going to hold it. And people are not realizing today how much those institutions are willing to hold Bitcoin. And what we are seeing right now, I think it's creating the perfect base for the price to skyrocket from here, because those OGs are not going to keep selling for so long. Even though we have the pattern, what I'm seeing right now is that institutions will keep buying while the OGs at some point will stop selling, which is quite exciting. I would say for everyone. Like what's happening right now should not be underestimated.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the institutional interest that we're seeing right now cannot be ignored. Corporate reserves jumped from 510,000 Bitcoin to 1.3 million in under 2 years. And the number of public companies holding Bitcoin went from 39 to 158. Which begs the question, Anton, do you think we're witnessing the permanent corporatization of Bitcoin? Or is this just another cycle trend and everybody's getting on the old Bitcoin treasury bandwagon? What do you think?
I will rely on the data we are seeing right now, and it's a fact that institutions are buying. There is institutional FOMO right now rushing to acquire Bitcoin. It's easier than ever, considering the regulations right now that are in place in pretty much every country around the world. And those institutions, they're going to stay with the Bitcoin. Now, it's a different story if they're purchasing 1% or 10% of their holdings into Bitcoins. But even 1%, it's actually allowing them to learn how to buy and how to store their Bitcoin. And once this is like established process in those companies, they're going to just accelerate the investment. They like the investment from their treasuries to be held in Bitcoin. So the percentage of Bitcoins that institutions are owning is only going to go up, because what's happening and this is like the normal supply and demand, when the price of the Bitcoin is high enough, OGs and some of the retails, they're going to sell, because there is this Bitcoin maxi. Max is understanding that you should never sell your Bitcoin, but the on-chain data is actually showing the opposite. People are selling Bitcoin, probably because they purchased at $100 and they're going to sell at 1 million, but they will sell. And institutions are here to buy. Those are trends which I think are not going to hurt anyone. And at the end, it's like that's how Bitcoin is constructed. Like if you offer the right price, you can acquire it. I don't see anything concerning here.
Yeah, and the corporations aren't messing around either, as their average allocation is around 22% of net income, with the median being around 10%. And that is, in no way symbolic. That is some real conviction we're seeing on the institutional side. But do you think that this level of commitment holds through the volatility we will likely see in the future? Or will these new CFOs maybe panic the second Jerome Powell sneezes and says he's not going to cut interest rates or something? Do you think, it sounds like you think they're here to stay with the Bitcoin, huh?
I think in short term, we may see some concerns from the CFOs, because they have like quite traditional approach dealing with volatility. But Hank, I think the Bitcoin volatility is going down every year since 2022. The biggest drawdown, I think it's like 15%, and like it's going down and down. The volatility is decreasing, which is going to be good for the traditional companies interested in buying Bitcoin. So for sure, like in long term, this is not going to be an issue. In short term, we may see some concerns from those corporates, but yeah, the long term game is quite clear to me. Do you know what I'm sad right now? I'm sad for those retail customers that are just selling their Bitcoin, and then they're going to rush buying at much higher price in 1-2 years, even 3 years from now. But yeah, that's at the end, that's the game. Like if you cannot hold, you regret and you buy later at the price you deserve. So you know who said this? If I say the name, it will appear. It will appear in the right corner. But yeah, that's what Michael Saylor said.
That's right, he will. That's right. I mean, he pioneered the model back in 2020. And that begs the question, right? Like, we're seeing all of these copycat Bitcoin treasury firms, which at face value seems great, right? But it makes you wonder, like, is this herd mentality sustainable? Or is there's always that risk, right, that when one of these treasury companies sees that bit of a retracement that maybe they weren't anticipating or expecting, then maybe they sell, one domino wobbles, and then the whole corporate stack starts this, to sell off themselves. Are you concerned about that all in the short term, that some of these new holders are going to have paper hands, the first sign of volatility?
Now, it really depends on what type of concern I should or we should have here. Is this going to damage the Bitcoin price in short term? Yes, probably yes. But Hank, we survived the FTX crash. We survived the situation where like over 50,000 paper Bitcoins have been just put into the system. And then if we have a treasury company which is forced to sell, I will be concerned if I'm owning their stock, because most probably the stock will crash. But if you hold the Bitcoin, you're embracing the volatility. You're here presumably for the long game. We may see, most probably, we will see some treasury companies being forced to sell, because what's happening right now, someone may argue that it's not sustainable. But at the end, like as I mentioned, the Bitcoin price volatility is going lower and lower, and like in long term, I don't think this will damage the Bitcoin price at all. Maybe in short term, yes, but it also depends if you hold Bitcoin or you just hold the stock. Because right now, if you're owning strategy stock, your volatility is much higher than Bitcoin anyway. Probably your returns are also higher, but at the end, it's just your risk profile, what you want to achieve. So yeah, I mean, I'm here. I'm here since 2013. I didn't buy Bitcoin back then. I regret. So what I learned is that the Bitcoin price will survive any type of short-term volatility.
Right. I think you just created my new shirt that I'm going to make that just says Bitcoin, embrace the volatility. And maybe we'll have Michael Saylor getting electrocuted or something. Sounds fun. On the more technical or numbers aspect of this, analysts are saying that if we break 114 and 120, then those are kind of the main technical hurdles that we're going to see before the next leg up, which would be 125, which would be new all-time highs. So with companies vacuuming up this huge amount of Bitcoin every day, over 1,700, and seemingly at this point refusing to sell it, do you think Bitcoin is setting itself up for a big supply shock come Q4, maybe something that'll melt faces and balance sheets at the same time? What are you expecting as we enter to what is usually one of the best quarters, if not the best of the year for Bitcoin? What are you expecting, Anton?
Yeah, I have to speak from my personal views. I think the Bitcoin right now is in a very strong bull market. I understand that some people will say that we used to have much ridiculously crazy bull markets in the past, but that's the normal evolution of a 2 trillion asset. Like, it's normal to not have 100% overnight returns. Right now, considering the strong institutional demand and not so strong patterns of OG sellings, I think the Bitcoin price will keep appreciating. Are we going to see 145 or 150 in Q4? It's very likely to happen. But I would definitely not be disappointed if the Bitcoin price finished the year at 100,000, because Hank, 3 years ago the price was 20,000. So we should be fine. We should be fine, because also Bitcoin never been in a stronger position, having the US government supporting so strongly the entire crypto ecosystem. Because 3 years ago we had Operation Choke Point 2.0, where the US government actually attacked the entire industry, and right now it's completely opposite. So yeah, I think buying Bitcoin, especially with the DCA strategy, is a great it's a great opportunity and a great way to accumulate more Bitcoin, which is what I am doing. So yeah, I think it's very possible to answer your question. It's very possible to see the Bitcoin reaching 145 in Q4. I personally think it will happen, but again, we should not be disappointed if the Bitcoin is at 100K.
Yeah, I mean, the setup looks pretty nice as we enter what is, again, usually a very bullish Q4, but we'll see how it plays out. But with all of this institutional money now in play that we hadn't really seen before, the setup seems to be there. And we're going to get back to you in just a second, Anton, because I want to go over this next story really quick. Because despite all this institutional money we've seen recently, research from River shows that individuals, believe it or not, still control the majority of Bitcoin, as about 66% of the circulating supply, that's roughly 13.83 million coins, belong to individual wallets. That includes both self-custody and exchange accounts tagged as personal. Now, on the institutional side, businesses hold about 6.2% of the supply, or about 1.3 million Bitcoin. ETFs and funds are larger, with about 7.8% or 1.63 million BTC under their control. Governments, based on public sovereign addresses, hold around 1.5%. And then there's the nobody's getting it back pile. Of course, we're talking about lost coins, which are estimated at 7.5% or 1.58 million Bitcoin based on old wallets that haven't moved in years. Satoshi himself, or Patoshi, depending on which research you believe, is pegged at about 4.5% of the total supply, which is just under a million coins. Finally, there's the miners prize pool. That's about 5.2% of supply, just over a million Bitcoin. Hasn't been mined yet before the 21 million hard cap. Now, River says its estimates aren't perfect. Custodians hold for multiple clients, and some wallets are misclassified, and ownership is often murky. But the conclusion here is actually quite clear. Individuals still dominate Bitcoin holdings. Institutions are catching up fast, especially with ETF growth and corporate balance sheets now stacking sats. For now, though, the Bitcoin story isn't Wall Street's, it's the plebes. And that's exactly how Satoshi would have wanted it. All right, bring it back, Anton. Anton, River's research says individuals still control about 66% of the circulating Bitcoin supply. That's like 13.8 million coins. Does that surprise you, or is this exactly why Bitcoin was designed, to stay in the hands of the actual people instead of being eaten alive by Wall Street ETFs? What do you think?
I think what we're seeing is absolutely astonishing. 66% of an asset which Wall Street institutions and governments are rushing to buy is still owned by individuals. As you, Hank, said, this is exactly what Satoshi dreamed of. That's exactly why he created Bitcoin. And I'm like seeing these numbers. I'm like thinking of myself. Bitcoin is amazing. Like that's exactly why I believe in the mission of Bitcoin. I believe that Bitcoin will actually change. It is already changing people's life. I also want to highlight that institutions like ETFs, yes, they are buying Bitcoin, but at the end, the money going from ETFs, actually they're like for normal investors. Yes, they do not own the Bitcoin physically, but like for them, owning Bitcoin through ETFs may be just easier, probably because their broker is allowing them to buy Bitcoin through ETFs. But like the 66%, actually I believe it's higher if we incorporate the ETFs owned by individual investors. And yes, the institutions are here, they're buying aggressively, but they're still far away from owning majority of Bitcoins. And I am not sure if this will happen because, Hank, yes, we have a sell pressure right now from OGs, but at some point this sell pressure will stop and people will realize that Bitcoin is appreciating 40% every year on average. Why should I sell my Bitcoin to corporate Wall Street? Like, it makes zero sense, because if I sell it today, tomorrow it's going to be like 40% higher, or next year is going to be 40% higher. So yeah, I think this number is not going to go below 50%, and that's the beauty of Bitcoin. It's centralized, and most of the coins are owned by individuals. I think it's amazing. It's the only asset in the world which currently has this distribution.
Right. And yeah, to your point, that makes a lot of sense too. If you took, I mean, ETFs are like 7.8, almost 8% of all Bitcoin holdings right now. And yeah, a lot of those are just individuals looking to get exposure without having to deal with the pains of a cold wallet. So the individual percentage, to your point, is probably a lot higher. But, you know, we have seen a lot of businesses and institutions come in. That's just over 6%. Governments are 1.5% right now. Long term, though, how do you see this balance shifting? Do you think that, it sounds like you think individual ownership will always remain kind of the dominant percentage no matter how many Saylor-sized treasury firms pop up? Or do you think with governments eventually starting to put Bitcoin on their balance sheets and with more and more treasuries companies popping up, do you think it is possible that maybe that balance gets below 50% for individual holders at some point? Or do you think they're going to be holding and hodling strong for the long term?
It's very speculative, but if I have to bet right now, I won't say that the ownership is going to go below 50%. And this is simply because the people that are owning Bitcoin, majority of them are here understanding the purpose of Bitcoin. It's understanding that it's there is a market, like there is a cap of 21 million Bitcoins. You cannot create more Bitcoins. And they know that if they sell now, at some point they have to buy at higher price. And the people that are speculating, I absolutely understand their point that they want to buy now and sell tomorrow. But usually those speculators, they're not speculating with very large amounts of Bitcoin. So I think those are like we can statistically ignore those speculators. So majority of Bitcoin holders right now, and I can confidently say this, are here because they understand Bitcoin and they understood Bitcoins years ago, and they're not going to sell their coins easily. Some of them are selling, so that's why I think the current percentage of 66 or even more will go down. Going below 50%, I don't think we are going to ever see this.
Yeah, and the story made a good point too, that they estimated that nearly 7.5% of the supply might be lost or gone forever already. Satoshi's stash sits around just under 5%, and miners have about 5% left to unearth themselves. So it begs the question, Anton, how much does that dead supply really matter to the overall market? Or is it simply a permanent liquidity crunch that we've all just kind of accepted at this point?
We have to be careful considering the lost Bitcoin, because quantum computing it's right around the corner. At some point, those coins may be stolen, and once this happens, the supply of those Bitcoins will flood the market. Right now, yes, considering where we are right now with the quantum computers, we have those Bitcoins, like approximately 15% of the overall supply is lost. But again, I'm very careful claiming that those Bitcoins will be lost forever, because at some point they may not be. But yeah, that's a slightly separate topic. But right now, yes, the available demand, the available supply of Bitcoins, it's definitely not enough to cover the demand from institutions. And that's why I'm saying it's a very, very interesting situation right now, because we have the perfect base for the Bitcoin price to skyrocket in the next few quarters. Because Hank, I really believe the 4-year cycle is broken. It got broken when the Bitcoin hit all-time high before the halving last year. And because of this, no one really can predict where the price is going to be based on historical patterns. But based on what I'm seeing right now on chain, it's a perfect, we have the perfect situation for the price to constantly go up for the next quarters, if not even years. And I'm telling you, no one is really prepared for what's coming.
Yeah, no, it certainly seems like it's a great setup for us to continue a slow and methodical climb up and to the right. But like you kind of mentioned, it is unpredictable because the nature of the ecosystem right now is so different than what we've experienced previously, right? All this institutional money, government regulations finally blowing in favor of Bitcoin going forward. So it's a really unique spot. The setup looks great. How high can it go? Only time will tell. But another interesting point is that, we were talking about the individuals right now seem to be in the lead or in charge when it comes to Bitcoin holdings. Nearly 2/3 of the holdings are in individual wallets. But if individuals really are the backbone of Bitcoin ownership, what do you think that means for Bitcoin's future? Is it bullish because the grassroots hold is strong on Bitcoin, or is it maybe bearish because institutions aren't in control enough to pump our bags properly moving forward? How do you think this plays out?
Hank, I think what everyone is missing right now is that institutions are buying Bitcoin, and at some point they're going to rush for owning as much as Bitcoin as possible in order to ensure like they can compete with others. Because what strategy did right now, they set a new standard for how to play this treasury game, and other institutions, they don't have a lot of a lot of options right now. So they have to either implement the Bitcoin treasury on their balance sheet, or they're going to just be ignored from the investors. And I think this will only lead to situation to have more institutions owning more Bitcoin. Is this bad for the industry? I don't think so, because our long-term vision is that Satoshi created Bitcoin to be a P2P electronic cash system, and at some point institutions will have to do something with the Bitcoin they acquired, because right now they're acquiring, but at some point the Bitcoin, it's supposed to work for you. They can either lend it, or they can use the Bitcoin they acquired, for example, to process transactions, or to create some very innovative products that right now they don't exist, simply to make some additional gains. Because I think that's what also Michael Saylor is envisioning. Yes, he's saying right now to everyone, Bitcoin is a digital gold, never sell your Bitcoin, or don't touch your Bitcoin. But he will not have a choice when you have let's say Google buying Bitcoin and then realizing the potential of Bitcoin to be much more than store of value. So then what Treasury is going to do, they're going to just follow Google or Amazon or any major IT firm, or that is doing something with the Bitcoin, because the investors will very easily, with a few clicks, they will move from owning strategy stock to owning the very innovative IT company with 100,000 Bitcoins that actually is not only getting advantages from the Bitcoin price appreciation, but then getting additional yield with some innovative solutions. Maybe deploy Bitcoin to earn yield by processing Lightning Network transactions, sourcing liquidity to the Lightning Network, or just use a Bitcoin to earn yield by having some very smart lending strategies. So I think that's coming. Maybe it's a little bit early, but this will come at some point. So it's good for the ecosystem. I'm definitely bullish right now on the system.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, more and more products, as we're seeing, are going to be available that utilize Bitcoin. And what are these corporations going to do? Keep holding cash like a bunch of fiat clowns? I don't think so. So, yeah, I'm on the same train as you, my friend. Now, hang tight here. We're going to hop back on with you in just a second, Anton, because I want to talk about this next story with you for sure. Because Satoshi Nakamoto, who you might know vanished in 2011 with a note saying, "I have moved on to other things." And now, 14 years later, other things has apparently meant letting the internet fight about who he is. Now, Joseph Shalom, the co-CEO of SharpLink Gaming, which also manages a $3.6 billion Ethereum treasury, well, he's got a theory. He thinks that Satoshi will come back when quantum computers threaten Bitcoin. The hero we deserve. Yes, I am talking about quantum computing, the tech boogeyman that was supposedly going to show up within the next decade and breaks all encryption like it's a wet napkin. Now, the Bitcoin community is already spitballing solutions, hard forks, new encryption, maybe even freezing Satoshi's old coins. Now, Shalom thinks that when those decisions hit, Satoshi will reappear because his stash, well, it'll be on the line. In his words, when the quantum moment arrives, somebody's going to say, "I don't want to be forked," or "fork me," which is definitely the weirdest way to talk about defending $120 billion. That's how much Satoshi's suspected wallets, the ones identified by the Potoshi pattern, are worth today. Roughly 1.096 million Bitcoin, making him the 12th richest person on Earth without ever cashing out. A 23% price jump would push that stash to $150 billion and crack the global top 10. Now, prediction markets, they don't buy it. Myriad says there's a 90% chance Satoshi won't hit that number this month, but if those wallets ever move, the market would melt down faster than a TikTok influencer during a power outage. Shalom says Satoshi could also use old email addresses or his Bitcoin Talk account to resurface. not doxing himself, just flexing the keys. Of course, Satoshi speculation is practically a sport at this point. People have accused everyone from early Bitcoiners to Elon Musk of being Satoshi. HBO even ran a 2024 documentary trying to pin it on Peter Todd. The community, though, they dismissed it. Todd dismissed it. Pretty much the only person who hasn't denied being Satoshi is Bigfoot at this point. But Shalom's theory has one thing going for it. If quantum really does threaten Bitcoin, the only person with more at stake than Michael Saylor is the guy who invented it. Bringing Anton back. Anton, what do you make of this, man? Quantum computing, it brings Satoshi back. Is this all just internet fodder, or do you think there could be some truth to this?
You remember, Hank, last time when we talked, you showed me this website which was counting the debts of Bitcoin. I think we need the same website to count how often Satoshi is going to be revealed, or when he's expected to come back. Probably we have this every month, a few times per month. No, but this guy is running Ethereum treasury company, right? So when someone being engaged with Ethereum try to attack maybe indirectly Bitcoin, it just makes me laugh. Just makes me feel strange. I don't really buy this statement that Satoshi will come because of the quantum computing threat, because Satoshi was he had the opportunity to come back during the block size wars in 2017-18. He potentially had the opportunity to come back in 2021 when this institutional adoption started, because just maybe Satoshi is not very happy to see institutions buying Bitcoin so aggressively, and he decided to not appear. Is he going to appear now because of the quantum computers? 100% no. Because this is just a normal evolution of how the technology is progressing, and I'm sure, with the very strong Bitcoin community we have right now, we're going to find the right approach to ensure the quantum computing is not going to threat the Bitcoin ecosystem. And I already see some great events that happened in the past few weeks. You probably saw the Quantum Summit from Presidio Bitcoin that happened a few weeks ago, and there are some crazy good insights what's going to happen. But Hank, if you allow me, there is one thing which I agree with this guy and his statement, and that's the philosophical and ethical consideration. What we should do with those dormant Bitcoin wallets. It's statistically proven that probably 36% right now of all available Bitcoin it's under quantum computer threat, which means those coins can be stolen, and they will be stolen. Like Satoshi's 1 million Bitcoins, they will be stolen at some point, from bad actors. This will happen, and it's inevitable. And now the philosophical question is: should we do something to prevent this from happening? Because this means the Bitcoin principle of integrity is going to be happening, actually justified. But then there is another principle which is going to be violating the principle of immutability, meaning the Bitcoin is unchangeable. Why someone will decide what to happen with the Bitcoins I own? Maybe I'm dead a long time ago, but I still have Bitcoins in my address. Why a centralized entity, or why a group of people should decide what to happen with my Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin was designed to be unchangeable. The design of the network should stay as it is, maybe with some small improvements, but the core design is not changed, and it's never been changed. It should never probably be changed. That's a very philosophical deep discussion. What should happen with those Bitcoins? Now imagine Satoshi owning 1 million Bitcoins, which is approximately $120 billion right now. When the bad actors actually access his coins, this is going to actually bring in short term the Bitcoin price volatility significantly, because imagine having 1 million coins that are constantly being sold, and then there is over 5 additional million Bitcoins that are going to be stolen, and at some point they will hit the market unless the community decides to do something. I don't have the answer for myself, which is the best approach here, because whatever the community decides, it's going to be always people criticizing this and people supporting this. So it's one of the most important, if not the most important, challenge for the Bitcoin community, which should happen in the next 2 to 3 years, because the quantum computers are coming from 5 to 10 years from now. So we have like 36, 48 months to decide what to do. So it's one of the most interesting topics right now.
It is. It really is a very interesting philosophical quandary of sorts. And it also begs the question, let's just say someone came out and they said they were Satoshi and they were able to verify that it was Satoshi. What kind of tailspin do you think that would put the market into? Could that be bullish for Bitcoin? Because like, let's say Elon pops a mask off and he is Satoshi. Is that bullish, putting a face to that name? Or is it actually bearish because it kind of loses some of its purity, right? Because any person you put with it, whether it's Elon or Jack Dorsey or Peter Todd or someone else, then it comes all of that personal baggage and feelings are now associated with this thing because they ultimately created it. So do you think us actually finding out who Satoshi is would even be a good thing for Bitcoin?
Absolutely no, because Bitcoin got recognition from so many people so early, almost immediately after it was created, because the founder is anonymous, is decentralized, and literally there is no single person behind Bitcoin. Now, you may make a point that okay, Bitcoin is already so decentralized. There are hundreds of thousands of nodes that are running around the world. Even if we know who is Satoshi, why we should care? Well, we should care because the way Bitcoin was created was as a response to the financial crisis, and this like movement of having your destiny in your hands. And if we have a person right now appearing and saying I'm Satoshi, that's going to like change the way how people are understanding Bitcoin. I don't think this will happen for the reasons I already shared with you. Satoshi had more than like enough chances and challenges to appear and raise a hand and say, wait, whatever you are doing is wrong. He decided to not do it. So I don't think this will happen. But even if we give 1% chance for Satoshi to appear, I think this will be bearish for the Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is what it is now, because the community is like considering Bitcoin as decentralized and not having a centralized figure behind it. Everyone from us is owner of Bitcoin. We are behind the network, and we should not have one person behind who is actually trying to influence the decisions. It's not like Ethereum, where you have one guy who can do pretty much whatever he wants, and if he does not have enough voting power, he can always influence others. And that's not how Bitcoin is operating. That's why Bitcoin is winning, and Ethereum arguably is not right now, because people are behind Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, and it kind of takes away some of the mystical element to it, right? That like Bitcoin is the perfect money that was brought to us from future civilizations or aliens or God, I don't know. And it definitely takes away some of that luster of the whole Bitcoin value prop. So no, I'm on board with that. I hope we never know who it is, and I hope he never sells any of those coins for number go up reasons, of course. All right, Anton, we got to let you go. But before we do, for those in our audience that are interested in learning more about you or all the incredible things and products you guys are doing over at Xapo Bank, what's the best place for me to send them?
You can always check our X accounts, either my personal accounts or our Xapo Bank X account, or you can just text us on LinkedIn. Usually we are replying to every single message we receive. So yeah, feel free to follow us on X, my personal account on X, or just send us a message on LinkedIn. So, yeah, we are here.
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, Anton, always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your insights and expertise this morning, and we are excited to have you back again really soon, my friend. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, Hank. You too.
Cheers. All right, we're taking a quick break, but when we're back, more Blockchain Report with some more of today's top stories, and we have our second special guest of the day coming up in just a bit, so stay tuned. All of that and more right after this.
It runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen, This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
All right, now we're back with more of this morning's bull run. Crypto exchange Gemini, founded by Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, has reportedly roped in NASDAQ as a strategic investor ahead of its much-awaited market debut this Friday. According to Reuters, NASDAQ is expected to buy $50 million worth of shares in a private placement at the time of Gemini's initial public offering. The investment is part of a partnership deal. NASDAQ's clients will gain access to Gemini's custody and staking services, while Gemini's institutional clients will get access to NASDAQ's Calypso platform for managing and tracking trading collateral. So, yes, Wall Street's biggest exchange operator is now moonlighting as the twins' wingman, all for $50 million. Gemini, founded back in 2014, is among the biggest U.S. crypto trading platforms by trading volume. According to Kaiko data, it currently holds $21 billion in assets and has processed $285 billion in lifetime trading volume. Not exactly Facebook money, but enough to prove the twins are more than just those guys Armie Hammer played in that movie. Now, retail sentiment around NASDAQ stock, by the way, was in bearish territory on StockWits at the time of writing, because nothing gets retail traders more nervous than a legacy exchange throwing money into crypto right before an IPO. And Gemini isn't the only one making moves. An increasing number of crypto-linked companies are reportedly looking at going public thanks to President Donald Trump's second term and what's being described as a friendlier regulatory stance. Peter Thiel, backed bullish, recently joined the public market club. Stablecoin issuer Circle Internet is also lining up. As for Gemini, the New York-based firm said in a filing last week that it intends to raise up to $317 million through the IPO. The plan is to sell 16.67 million shares in the $17 to $19 price range. Of course, the fling added the fine print: the company's plans are subject to market conditions and could change, which is IPO speak for if things get ugly, we're ghosting faster than a rug pull. For now, though, the fact stands that NASDAQ is handing over $50 million, and Gemini is aiming for $317 million more, and the Winklevi twins are once again proving that even if Zuckerberg won round one, they're still writing themselves into the sequel. And our Lord and Sailor, Michael Saylor, co-founder and executive chairman of Strategy, there he is now officially ranked among the world's richest. Bloomberg's Billionaires Index put him at number 491 with an estimated net worth of $7.37 billion. Most of that wealth comes from his 8% stake in Strategy. That includes 19.6 million Class B shares and 382,000 Class A shares, according to the company's 2025 proxy filing. See, back in 2020, Saylor revealed that he personally owned 17,700 Bitcoin through Bloomberg, although Bloomberg doesn't include it because they can't verify ongoing ownership. His personal cash also comes from selling MicroStrategy stock, over $410 million worth in 2024, with adjustments for taxes and market changes, of course. Through strategy, though, Saylor has built the world's largest publicly traded Bitcoin treasury. The company currently holds more than 638,000 BTC, and in recent interviews, Saylor has said the stash could one day reach 1.5 million Bitcoin. But despite those numbers, strategy was left out of the S&P 500 in the latest rebalance. Robinhood made the cut, strategy didn't. The S&P doesn't give reasons for the exclusion, but one requirement is positive earnings across the last 4 quarters. Strategy's financials, well, they don't pass the test. The company's results swing violently with Bitcoin's price. In Q2 of this year, rising Bitcoin prices pushed net profit above $10 billion. In Q1, falling prices forced a $4.2 billion loss. Analyst Vincent Van Code summed it up saying, Strategy's income statement is basically a mirror of Bitcoin's price chart, swinging from giant profits to giant losses quarter by quarter. And that volatility likely made the index committee nervous. The exclusion matters because the S&P 500 is the benchmark for trillions in institutional funds and ETFs. Inclusion often sparks automatic buying. But for now, Strategy misses out on all of that. Saylor's response to all of this was predictable. Post the scoreboard. He showed Strategy stock up 92% annualized, outperforming both Bitcoin at 55% and the S&P 500 at 14%. Forbes even pegs his wealth higher at $8.8 billion and number 379 globally. So while his company didn't make the S&P, his bank account is doing just fine. The next chance for inclusion is in December, and until then, the standoff continues. Traditional finance still can't figure out what to do with a company whose core business model is buy Bitcoin, and Saylor seems perfectly happy proving that strategy works with or without Wall Street's stamp of approval. And GameStop is back in the news as they report their earnings today after the market closes. Yeah, the OG meme stock is still alive, still public, and now pretending to be a Bitcoin treasury instead of a strip mall video game store. Last quarter, they somehow posted a 4th consecutive profit, even though revenue missed Wall Street's expectations. The real story, though, their cash pile jumped from $1 billion last year to nearly $6.5 billion today. And everyone's watching CEO Ryan Cohen like he's the world's least reliable uncle holding the family lottery winnings. As one ex-user put it, GameStop is no longer a retailer burning cash. It has become a lean, profitable, cash-generating shell with a fortress of a balance sheet. Or in other words, they're sitting on a war chest and the only question is what Ryan Cohen decides to blow it on. Spoiler alert, it's going to be Bitcoin. You see, in March, the board approved adding Bitcoin as a Treasury reserve asset. In April, they raised $1.5 billion in a bond deal. In May, they bought Bitcoin. In June, they raised more debt, which probably means more Bitcoin. And in July, Cohen finally said it out loud on CNBC. We made an investment of just over $500 million into Bitcoin. We'll see what happens. Now, since that announcement, GameStop's stock is down 8.4%, Strategy's down 3.6%, Bitcoin's up 28%, the S&P 5 is up 12%. So, yeah, being a mini MicroStrategy doesn't sound so bad after all, but Cohen, he hates the comparison. He says, we have our own unique strategy. We'll deploy our $9 billion like it's my own money. We'll be opportunistic. Or in other words, we're going to keep buying Bitcoin, but please don't say that we copied Michael Saylor. Meanwhile, they're cutting stores, leaning into trading cards and collectibles, and generally trying to look profitable. The analyst consensus, one guy, literally one analyst, expects 19 cents per share on the $900 million in revenue. And there's the no conference call thing. There hasn't been one since March of 2023 because nothing says transparent public company quite like ghosting your investors every quarter. Bottom line here, though, is GameStop is no longer the punchline of Wall Street bets. It's a Bitcoin hedge fund with leftover Funko Pops. All right, we're taking a break, but when we're back, we have our guest of the day, Jesse Myers from the Smarter Web Company, joining us on the show to talk shop All that and more coming up right after this break. Stay tuned.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy. Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
All right, welcome back to the Blockchain Report. Now it is time for our deep dive of the day, and our guest is one of the sharpest minds in Bitcoin strategy out there. He's someone who's not only written the playbook, but inspired Michael Saylor's own Bitcoin 24 framework. He's the head of Bitcoin strategy at the Smarter Web company, where he's steering the UK's first big corporate Bitcoin treasury. And before that, he ran a hedge fund, co-founded a custody firm, and dropped charts so good that Saylor literally built a keynote around them. Let's give a big blockchain report welcome to Jesse Myers, or as the many in the Bitcoin world known as Croesus. Jesse, how are you? Thanks for joining us this morning.
That's too kind. That was a pretty fun intro. I've never had that before. Yeah, doing great. How are you doing today?
Oh, I am doing well. The sun is shining. Bitcoin's still six figures. I don't have too much to complain about except my Bears losing in dramatic fashion last night. But that's a personal problem. Let's get into it with you, Jesse. We've got a lot to talk about today, as you, my friend, have a really interesting background. You've gone from Bain consultant to Stanford MBA to Bitcoin hedge fund manager to head of strategy at Smarter Web. What was the moment that you realized, forget consulting slides, I'm dedicating my career to magic internet money? What was that journey like for you?
Oh man, a long one. I took the way of pain. I went through altcoins to get to Bitcoin. I was in San Francisco, and I was working at Bain and Company, and San Francisco was buzzing about Ethereum in 2016, 17, and so I got in on Ethereum, pretty early on, not super early, but pretty early on. And did well with that, and then went further out on the risk curve, to altcoins. My thesis at the time was that, Bitcoin was first, and then these other newer technologies would eat market share from Bitcoin because they were better technologies, and this was about technology. And that was, very much the ethos of Silicon Valley, right? And the ethos of San Francisco. And that's all I was hearing around me, and I just fell into that. Was doing well investing in altcoins, and started a crypto hedge fund based on, opening up my thesis to other investors. And that did well in 2017 and got murdered in 2018. And it forced me to figure out, okay, what was I missing? Why was I so wrong? Why is Bitcoin doing better in a bear market, even though it's this old, antiquated tech, right? And that eventually allowed me to find the little rabbit hole within the rabbit hole. You think you're all the way down the rabbit hole because you're a believer in digital value and in digital assets and crypto. And then you find the deeper rabbit hole of Bitcoin only, Austrian economics, digital gold, digital capital. And you realize that it's always been about Bitcoin the whole time, that digital scarcity is a one-time phenomenon, that Bitcoin is it, and that Bitcoin is eating the world of value little by little, and that we've only just begun that process. And that led to me putting out my analysis on where we're at in that process and how much value Bitcoin will eat, which I put out a few years ago as my Bitcoin's full potential valuation report. And Michael Saylor liked that framework a lot and ran with it. And so that's been kind of my journey into Bitcoin and my contribution since.
Amazing. And you have a great name, the Croesus Thesis. So it was good enough for Michael Saylor, which I guess it's good enough for the rest of us. And your background is especially interesting because you've studied in a lot of different arenas here. You were in neuroscience, then accounting, then business. I mean, hell of a resume for someone who now tweets about Satoshis. How do you feel like that kind of zigzag path shaped the way that you think about Bitcoin today?
Yeah, it instrumental in helping shape that. And I think anyone who has a multidisciplinary background has a pretty unique lens through which they view anything in the world. And that's true for me with Bitcoin. It is funny that all of my experience and education has amounted to me shit posting on Twitter about Bitcoin a lot. It boils down to
it's a wild world we live in.
Yeah, that's what I decided was the most valuable use of my time about 5 years ago, and I stand by that. It's been true. I think my neuroscience background, well, first of all, I think accounting is the foundation of business. It's the language of business. And I think that was probably my most valuable degree in terms of understanding Bitcoin. I think it's no coincidence that Pierre Richard went to my same accounting program. There's a bunch of other accountants in Bitcoin. Cedric Youngelman from Bitcoin Matrix, Robert Breedlove, accounting backgrounds. I think that, if you have an accounting background, you see the potential and promise of a ledger that audits itself every 10 minutes, and is, there's never any discrepancies from in that ledger. It's pretty incredible. But yeah, I think my neuroscience background is a mixture of neuroscience is a mixture of biology, psychology, and like evolution. And I think that combo has been helpful for me to understand the context of money, the historical, anthropological context of money. And so when I read Shelling Out and then read The Bitcoin Standard by Saif, the historical context of hard money, of the story of gold really emerging as the best physical money in the world because of its properties, resonated so much with me of like, oh, this is just human nature. This is reality of how humans find the optimum strategies for storing their wealth and propagating it into the future. And Bitcoin is an improvement on that physical perfection, or physical best competitor, which is gold. And Bitcoin is a digital perfection of gold's strengths and solves for gold's weaknesses. So I think, that background, that combination has helped me to see Bitcoin with, my own particular flavor of conviction.
Yeah. And, it's one of those things, right? It's like you look back at your past, you're like, I did all these things and how they led me to this place. But if you start to unpack those, especially in your case, right? If you're looking at Bitcoin through a psychology lens, that's really important because we know in the market psychology plays a big role, but you've also have this accounting background. So if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And so that makes a lot of sense as to why where you are today, especially when, like, I think back, wasn't it like in 2017, you were back at, managing Bitcoin for high net worth clients back then. At that time, most people still thought blockchain was a new Lego feature. Like, what did that experience teach you about convincing traditional investors today to trust Bitcoin?
Yeah, great question. I think most investors, this is still true, and I think Bitcoiners forget this. Most investors are just trying to beat the S&P. They're just trying to beat their stock portfolio. And that's hard to do, right? Like if you're in a fiat paradigm, the best you can do is the S&P 500. The best thing you can do is, maybe a NASDAQ. And that's what all investors are trying to beat. Who are not yet Bitcoin maximalists, basically. And so if you can open their eyes to the properties of Bitcoin, how it has increasing scarcity, terminating in absolute scarcity, and that delivers, performance because the world has to revalue Bitcoin based on a reduced amount of supply issuance over time, and the fact that it's digital gold for the digital age. It's the second wave of the internet of value to complement the internet of information we've seen develop over the last 30 years. And then you can point out that it's extremely early in the adoption curve for this new technology, this new savings technology. Then you can make the case for like what we've seen over the last 15, 16 years of Bitcoin being the best performing asset in the world over that time period, and the best performing asset in the world for 3 out of every 4 years over that time period, then you can make the case for like this has been happening for structural reasons that will continue into the future, because it's, it's just a continuation of Bitcoin's adoption globally as a digital store of value asset. And when that light, sometimes that, you can land that argument and see the light turn on for that individual investor, and see the sort of greed in their eyes of like, wait a second, I can not deliver 8% a year with my stock index, but perhaps 25 to 50% a year with Bitcoin. That's an incredible, world-changing value proposition to any fiat investor. And the hard part is just showing them that those mechanics are real and lasting and will continue into the future.
Yeah, as Bitcoin continues to get a longer track record, it just seems like that would be a much easier sell, because when you look at the numbers, I've said this time and again on the show, if you told me, if you were a financial advisor and you said, hey, I got this stock and it grows about 30 to 40% every year,
Yeah.
I would say take all of my money and put it in it. So yeah, I think it's just getting people used to that track record.
Yeah.
And in terms of your background, you're especially interesting because a lot of people first met you through your Croesus writings in your Once in a Species project. So it begs the question for me, like, how did being pseudonymous change the way you communicated about Bitcoin? And then what made you finally decide to step out from behind the curtain, remove the mask as a Bitcoin Batman and show your face to the world? Like, what was that process like? Why did you choose to do it?
Yeah. I started out writing, analyzing Bitcoin on Twitter under the Croesus pseudonym, and that was just my handle that I chose because Croesus 2,600 years ago was king of Lydia and was the first king to establish standardized coinage. So that was a big milestone in monetary technology, because at that point in time, you suddenly reduce friction in commerce, right? Like if you're offered if you're trying to, conduct trade with somebody and they offer you a bag of gold dust, you don't know how much of that is actually lead. But if they offer you a coin with the stamp of the king on it, then you know that this is a certain amount of gold with a certain amount of purity, and you can trust that, and you can, more easily say yes to that proposition. So that was a massive milestone for monetary technology, and I view Bitcoin in the same lineage. It's another milestone in monetary technology. So in 2020, I started writing about Bitcoin on Twitter, just using my management consulting background to apply that, the same sort of analytical tools to analyzing Bitcoin. And
right, welcome back. Sorry, it looks like we had some kind of satellite interference, maybe a comet. I don't know. There's a lot of those satellites out there. Something's bound to happen. But if you want to catch the end of our exclusive interview with Jesse Myers of the Smarter Web Co., just make sure to check us out on the Rumbles or the YouTubes. We'll be posting it all there. He was a fun one, so make sure you check it out in case you missed the end of it. All right, time to wrap up today's show with a little bullish, bearish, or BS. We're running behind on time, so let's roll. First up, Sharp Links Gaming's Joseph Shalom claims that Satoshi Nakamoto might come back if quantum computers ever threaten Bitcoin security. His reasoning is that Satoshi has over 1 million Bitcoin to lose, so he will come back from the grave or wherever he is and show his face. I'm calling BS on this. This is pure crypto fan fiction at its finest. Exactly. Quantum computing might be a long-term risk, but right now it's not moving Bitcoin's price one sat higher or lower. Sorry to break it to you guys. Satoshi's not coming back. He's binge watching something from the shadows. A lot of good TV out there. Don't blame him. Next up, we got NASDAQ plans to buy $50 million worth of shares in Gemini's IPO, giving the Winklevi twins exchange a credibility boost and big name ally in Wall Street. Calling bullish on this. I mean, legacy finance investing directly into crypto companies signals institutional comfort with the industry. That kind of bridge between TradFi and Bitcoin's backyard is long-term bullish for adoption and liquidity, baby. So I am bullish on that. We have one BS, one bullish, one to go. Last but not least, Michael Saylor, executive chairman of strategy, has cracked Bloomberg's billionaires index with a net worth of over $7 billion, thanks largely to his company's Bitcoin treasury. Oh, I'm feeling bullish on this. I mean, Saylor getting mainstream billionaire recognition further validates Bitcoin as a serious corporate strategy. The more Saylor wins, the more companies feel pressure to copy him, and that means more institutional buying ahead. So I'm bullish. Final score, 1 BS, 2 bullish, 0 bearish, which means today's diagnosis is fully in the bullish arena. Institutions are writing checks, Saylor's flexing billions, and the only BS is the idea that Satoshi's staging a comeback here. So that's a wrap for today's episode of the Blockchain Report, boys and girls. As always, thanks for tuning in. We're here Tuesday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and Mondays, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So don't miss out. And make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV and me at Hank at RoxomTV on every platform that matters. And I'll see you all tomorrow for more crypto chaos and Bitcoin bedlam. Until then, hodl strong. See you mañana.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
In a world far away. Nah, just kidding. This story begins in this world. It all started in 1460 in Antwerp, when the first commodities exchange was created, but the real transformation came in 1602, when the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was founded. Considered the oldest in the world, it was the first to trade financial assets. Over the years, Britain expanded its colonial and maritime influence, and the British pound sterling overtook the Dutch guilder in the market. Thus, the London Stock Exchange became the financial centre of the world. The 20th century came, and the world got into some trouble. But shortly after World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, and the centre of the planet moved to Wall Street. Today, we're travelling at the speed of light towards a new age, an era shaped by the consolidation of Bitcoin as the currency that will define the future of the markets. We present Roxom, a new Bitcoin-denominated market that allows trading all sorts of securities, commodities, derivatives, options, and anything you can imagine. Roxom, rock-solid markets.
The future of capital markets runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
All right, welcome to the tallest bar in the world. It's an incredible experience here at the Roxom booth on the cusp of Bitcoin Asia, the largest Bitcoin conference on the continent. And I'm here with Stefan Livera, who we just realized, you know, probably if we added up the hours between you and me, it's probably the most hours speaking about Bitcoin online on the internet. I'm not sure anyone can get near it.
I mean,
you know?
we're talking hundreds of hours of content out there.
I think much more. It's a lot. And weirdly, I don't think we've ever done.
Yeah, we've never done a podcast together. Like,
is...
I just assumed after all these years we would have done something together. Yeah.
Hey, this should happen more, please.
I've been a fan for a long time.
As a Bitcoiner, as part of the audience, I would love to see this more.
Well, we're gonna maybe you got to come on the show sometime.
Yeah,
man.
well, I came on one time with Hank, I think, one time. Yeah, but you know, got to do some more.
Yeah. So we were, I think we were last chatting at the Satoshi Roundtable in Dubai, and we were talking a lot about your life in Dubai and the Bitcoin ascension that's going on there, and we're seeing now the royal family come out and be very open about their holdings. I saw another mining announcement the other day.
Although I think that might have been Arkham Intelligence kind of doxing, but I don't know the detail. I think it was Citadel mining. I think the theory, or what I heard or what I read, was that they have about 6,000 coins that they mined, and I think that entity is owned by the Royal Group, who is in turn controlled by, I believe, the brother of the president of the UAE. So,
oh wow!
Yeah, so, you know, and then another fund, I believe it's Mubadala, have 400 or 500 million
500
worth
million,
of the ETF,
BlackRock,
and that's the big sovereign fund.
You're mentioning, Stefan, like the brother of the president. Is this like the headline of this cycle is presidents and royal families of the world buying and getting into Bitcoin? Is this like the headline of the 24, 25?
To me, the headline is the royals are finally becoming as sovereign as us.
Yeah.
They're finally catching on, you know?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just interesting to see all this adoption. I mean, obviously the treasury companies, you can't ignore that. And like, I think the lending, right? There's so much interest in Bitcoin lending, collateralized, and that's lender side and the borrower side, right? So it's like on the borrower side, as Bitcoin maxis, you might want to, put some Bitcoin up and get some fiat. And then on the lender side, you've got like the fiat side of it who are like, hey, I'm getting wrecked in fiat bonds or whatever. Why don't I put some money and earn better yields, maybe 10, 12% or whatever, on these Bitcoin collateralized lending. And then, obviously the treasury company, you can't ignore the treasury companies. I mean, it's like every day.
We were just talking with Mark. I think this concept repeats itself again with the borrowers and lenders. Is like Bitcoin the next, let's say, wave of or boom of money and business and so on from Bitcoin to the fiat world? Like, because at the end, Nolan, if you think what we were talking with Mark and now with Stefan is like Bitcoin is bringing business opportunities to the fiat world. Like we were talking about preferred yield, borrowing, like providing liquidity for better rates. Like I honestly am seeing how Bitcoin, the Bitcoin world, the Bitcoin industry is actually starting to become a real business for people who do not necessarily care about Bitcoin. They're just like, I'll serve you, Bitcoiner. I want to do business with you. What's your take, Stefan?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this, to me, speaks to this idea, and even with the treasury companies, of like index inclusion or like trying to create a stock ticker that the fiat people can just buy the ticker, right? Because for them, it's like, it's a hurdle. And so even, so I think it's part of this is like, Bitcoiners have, and to be fair, the infrastructure, the ecosystem has kind of reached a point of maturity where this happens, right? Like I'm also a fan of like power law and stuff like that, so I think that kind of shows kind of the adoption. But to your point, it's more that Bitcoiners are finding ways to try to put Bitcoin inside of what are typically non-Bitcoin products, right? So even if you look at what Roy and Breeze guys are doing with Lightning, they're trying to get Breeze SDK into. They're trying to make, instead of making just another Bitcoin wallet app, they're trying to put Bitcoin into existing apps that are like fiat apps. And all of these things are kind of coming together. It's because Bitcoiners are trying to find ways to help make it accessible for people, and then hopefully they sort of come in one of those ways, and then they come down the rabbit hole and of course learn, hey, not your keys, not your coins, and all these things we talk about.
The frame I've always used for that, and I think it's remaining consistent, I would love to hear your reaction on it, because it's been useful for me, which is, it's a peer environment, a peer network, we're peers in the network, and you can usually tell by human capital migrations into Bitcoin what's happening in the normie world, because you see that being destabilized and their human capital comes out. So of course the cryptographers were the first, the cypherpunks were the first human capital to peel out of their business, which was nihilistic and why doesn't anyone care about security and privacy, and suddenly they could run the businesses. They didn't have to be the chief of security who no one gave a shit about or listened to. They could start, actually realizing they could run them. And then we saw, the Ron Paul thing brought those political people in. It brought them, and that was a wave. You saw them all come out of the Ron Paul campaign, and
like New Hampshire, Free State.
Yeah, they brought all that energy. Then we did see the original Wall Street. That was like a non-sentimental group of people that joined, and they just wanted to sling coins and make money and all that. We've seen a few of these waves, and then the 2020 sort of plebs that were insulted by the system with COVID and the tyranny and all that. What we're seeing now, and this is where this framework goes, these are what we call in law like legal persons or moral persons. These are indeed peers. These companies, just like a person, are peers in the network now. They're joining in their own way, and you can see that in the same way that human capital migrated to Bitcoin with its own needs and wants, we're seeing these entities now join as peers in the network. And you can really use this, I think, and sovereigns would be another example, right? When they come in, they're joining the network as, one after the other. Inevitably, they come this way. So I use human capital migration into the peer network to sort of get a sense of what every one of these cycles are. So now we're finally absorbing these, entities that are peers in the network. Are we going to be able to see companies as peers? I mean, is that a thing?
Maybe, but I guess maybe I'm being autistic or overly strict and technical, but it's like they're not necessarily running their own nodes. You know what I mean? They're just like they're trusting Coinbase's node. Okay, that's kind of like the Coinbase centralization angle, things like that, or they're trusting some custodian, or they're trusting like IBIT, whoever. They're trusting various layers of it. So of course, sometimes the way of the world, we can wish. I think another analogy I've heard is it's like desktop Linux, right? So years ago, the year of desktop Linux, and it didn't actually happen, right? It's like, but Linux kind of won, but not the way that the Linux people thought it would, right? It got into Android phones, and there's like a subsystem of Linux in Windows, and Mac is kind of, so it kind of got built in, it kind of got baked into the background. I think Bitcoin is that's kind of what's happening with Bitcoin. It's kind of getting baked into the background, and people eventually, once they get sick of like getting underperforming in fiat bonds and other investment in other assets, they're going to say, all right, fine, maybe it's bonds, but with a component of Bitcoin. It's whatever, real estate investment, but with a component of Bitcoin. It's stocks who are doing Bitcoin things. It's whatever, like they'll just try to put Bitcoin in, and then that's kind of one way that Bitcoin kind of takes over. Of course, we can have our criticisms about purity, about like, hey, you didn't hold your own keys and run your own node and do your own mining and so on. But I also believe the network is sufficiently decentralized anyway. So, yes, around the margins, some little things here and there, like maybe the mining template stuff, maybe the Coinbase custody stuff, we want to see it decentralize out more. But ultimately, this is just new people coming in. That's just, sometimes you got to just accept that it's not all going to happen the way we want it to. Yeah. And that's life.
Wonderful take, eh?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
He's always got the.
I love it.
He's always got the insight.
I fucking love it.
I think of it as we've got new peers and we've got this potential, I think, to really change the status quo in markets. And I continue to predict. This is one of the foundations of RoxomTV, that we're entering this bimetallic state. So maybe we will end up in the state that we wanted once the integration.
Phase.
And there's nothing that I've thought for a while that the conditions before the Federal Reserve were created were not, in fact, gold standard. We were in a bimetallic system in America. It was silver for consumers and farmers, and gold for the bankers, and there was a lot of tension between the two. I talk about the Wizard of Oz is actually about that, right? They changed the story. The movie came out in the 1930s, but the book was written in the American political context just before the advent of the Federal Reserve, and it was actually silver slippers on a gold road to talk. And the whirlwind was the populism that brought the Kansas farmers. The witches were the banks. The politician in Oz was there to say, go get me the power of the banks, and I'll give you nothing. In the end, the quid pro quo, they had everything that was offered to them. They never got anything extra. So it's a critique of the political system at the time. But that's what taught me that they did come. I didn't know about bimetallism really before. And you're Argentinian. You've lived already with bimetallism your whole life, basically, right? You had peso to buy coffee. But if you would ask an Argentine, like, how much does your house cost? They couldn't tell you. There was no psychological reference for pesos for homes or income or anything like that. So bimetallism seems to be what this confusing period has looked like. Do you have any experience thinking about bimetallism?
Yeah, I don't have any. Just generally, I think of like the kind of the Gresham's law thing, which is like when the government misprices one thing in terms of another. That's where people spend the artificially overvalued coin or side of it and hold the other one, right? That's kind of the typical Gresham's law. But obviously in Bitcoin, it's a little different. It's not. It's technically not Gresham's law. It's more just like we're seeing a lot of people who are spending fiat when. Look, the purists might say, hey, you should earn and spend Bitcoin. Now, of course, I earn and spend Bitcoin when I can. But again, it's the same kind of thing. I wish people would, but I know they won't, right? And it's kind of like, what can you do? So be it, right? Like, I think we're just on this adoption trend, and it's going to be decades out, right? Like, I'm looking at power law stuff. Shout out to, Giovanni Santastasi for that. But, if you're looking at that power law trend, it's like, I don't know, in 2045, 20 years from now, it'll be like $10 million. Or as a market cap, let's say 200 trillion-ish. And I think around then, and maybe a little bit after that, is when we start to see a more serious, like, okay, like, it's here, it's a massive part of the economy, it's not going away. So then that we'll start to see really a lot more of the medium of exchange in practice, as an example. Now, like I said, I encourage people to, but it's kind of like, people are just going to do it in their own time, right? You can't sort of, I don't think we can kind of lecture them and be like, hey, you need to...
The nagging doesn't work.
Yeah, you need to spend your sats here, otherwise you're not a true Bitcoin.
It just happens. Like, I think that, look, somebody very wise once told me there are processes that they just take some time. For example, women are pregnant for 9 months.
Yeah.
It's not that you can hurry it up and hey,
It's not
let's
like-
have the baby before or later or whatever. The process is 9 months. You like it, not, I don't fucking care. These things take time. Like in Argentina, it took 30 years, until practically the entire population started saying like, you know what, I'm just not gonna save in pesos anymore. I'm gonna save in dollars. But why? Because we've been getting consistently wrecked for 30 years. So after, like, and this is like an adoption curve. Like you have the visionaries who say like, I'm getting the fuck out of the Argentine peso, you know, like 30 years ago because this is bad, man. And then you have the people who after 5 years say, I'm tired of this bullshit, and they start migrating into a dollar-based thinking. And then you have the laggards, who are the people who have been just consistently getting wrecked for 20, 25, 30 years. And eventually they capitulate and they say, you know what? I'm sorry, Mr. Peso, but I'm quitting, you know? and it's just natural. And like Argentina is the adoption curve, because Argentina, it was literally that, like 30 years ago, hyperinflation and so on, and you had the smartest people who said, you know what, I'm gonna still transact in pesos because my daily things I will do them in pesos because salaries are in pesos, right? So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna get rid of the weaker currency, and I'm gonna save my dollars for later. And then as time went by, more and more people started doing the same until now Argentina is Argentina, and you have practically everybody lives in pesos, because again you go to the supermarket and you use pesos, and whatever you do is in pesos. But if you ask anybody how many savings do you have, or anything related to that, how much money in the stock market do you have, and so on, everything is in dollars. So I at least we in RoxomTV, we do see a future where in 30 years or 40 or whatever it takes, I believe people will live in dollars, euros, whatever you want, their daily lives. They will go to the supermarket, spend euros, dollars, but they will think in Bitcoin. They will say like, I've got 1 Bitcoin, or if I do a large transaction, I will probably settle it in Bitcoin. In the same way that in Argentina you buy candy with pesos, but you buy a house with dollars, right? So, but to your point, this is not something that is going to happen now, in 5 years, in 10. This is going to take time, but I don't see a way out, because if you think about fiat and the current system and money printing, no backing and so on, what's the way out? Like, what's the escape? If the world is one big Argentina, guys, how are we getting out of this?
Well, it's just, I always try to stress that, because we are, like I said, it's a P2P information network, but importantly, Bitcoin, like fiat, is a psychological commodity. It really, it's powered by our brains. If we don't believe in it, if we can't build on it, it's gone. Right?
Especially today.
Yeah. Now, the proof of work is what gives us the psychological confidence to build on it, because we see it makes sense. So there's a technical aspect. But of course, that's what seems to be driving things forward. Bitcoiners have not bought the nihilism. They haven't bought the defeatism of fiat. They haven't bought that sort of existential angst that comes with trying to keep up with the money printer all the time. And Bitcoiners have managed to traverse the last 10 years of absolute destruction of American psychological spaces, global political order. Europe is going to shit, and all these, the world is so bad. They say, you talk to a Bitcoiner and you ask them, what do you think about the future? And you're going to hear the same thing from most of them. I'm excited about the future. I think it has amazing things to offer. I know that's one of the messages that you try to bring in your content, just the optimism of the Bitcoiners and what an advantage it is in this fight,
Yeah, I'm with you. I think look, there'll be challenges on the way, but I think fundamentally it's going to be a bright future with Bitcoin, because I think there will be social and cultural shifts that are driven in a Bitcoin world. And so it's going to take time to get there. And, the funny thing, we're talking about like how, decades out, but when I was a noob in 2013 to Bitcoin, right, I was like shouting from the rooftops. I thought it was all going to happen in like a year or two, and I need to get my family and friends on board. And like many of us we feel like we've been there, right? Because when we were new to Bitcoin, we kind of went through that. Like we go for that kind of shouting from the rooftops phase. And then after a while, you sort of settle in and realize, and then maybe you get a bit nihilistic, but then you kind of come back and realize, no, we're going to win, but I just need to be patient. I need to kind of treat it. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. That's kind of the mindset I take to it now. It's kind of, look, you do this thing, you go out there, you try to help people learn about Bitcoin, learn about whatever, technology and economics.
It's what, AI has sort of solidified the thought for me, just that we can be so easily prompt engineered, just like you prompt engineer AI, because in the end, even though we're Bitcoiners, we're not more logical than other people. It's not an IQ question. It's not an access to information question. It's about understanding that we're a product of our fears and our wants. And the fears and wants that we carry with us every day, we call intelligence or rationality just explaining our choices to ourselves afterwards, but they're made from fear and want. But what Bitcoin can actually give you is the cognitive security of reprogramming those fears and wants. If you program the fears and wants with fiat, you're going to turn into a sludge person pretty quick.
I mean, to me, I see this as it's a broad idea, kind of the time preference idea, right? Like if you can't trust your money, like let me make an analogy. It's like if you're an animal, you are in the wild, and you are thinking about your next meal. That's pretty much, and trying to think about the next meal and trying to not get eaten, right? That's pretty much how you're thinking, right? You haven't been freed up to think about the long term of things, and like I think that's really a big difference if you're fiat denominated and fiat brained versus like Bitcoin denominated. Doesn't mean you have to be all in Bitcoin, right? But I mean, maybe some people are, or leave it, whatever. But the point is, when you have Bitcoin, you are now able to think in a more long term way, and now you can like plan things for your life and for your family in a much better way. And like you were saying, kind of navigating the chaos of whatever, lockdowns and travel bans and, socialism around the world. And, Bitcoin is just a tool that you can use to give yourself and your family some certainty. And that just changes how you think.
The only thing it doesn't do is make interviews longer. Unfortunately, it keeps interviews tight as they are. Stefan, it was great to have you. I appreciate it a lot.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We'll see you again soon, right?
See you soon, yeah.
We got to do a little more content together.
Yeah,
you got to come on the show. You got to come on Roxom again.
Yeah, we got to do it.
Great. So again, from the top of the world here, the highest bar on planet Earth, on the cusp of the largest Bitcoin conference in Asia, Stefan, and we'll see you again with the next guest.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin?
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you, don't go!
In a world far away. Nah, just kidding. This story begins in this world. It all started in 1460 in Antwerp, when the first commodities exchange was created, but the real transformation came in 1602, when the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was founded. Considered the oldest in the world, it was the first to trade financial assets. Over the years, Britain expanded its colonial and maritime influence, and the British pound sterling overtook the Dutch guilder in the market. Thus, the London Stock Exchange became the financial centre of the world. The 20th century came, and the world got into some trouble. But shortly after World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, and the center of the planet moved to Wall Street. Today, we're traveling at the speed of light towards a new age, an era shaped by the consolidation of Bitcoin as the currency that will define the future of the markets. We present Roxom, a new Bitcoin-denominated market that allows trading all sorts of securities, commodities, derivatives, options, and anything you can imagine. Roxom, rock-solid markets.
The future of capital markets runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
Welcome back to the tallest bar in the world here in Hong Kong. We're at the cusp of Bitcoin Asia. This is the RoxomTV booth, and I'm here with the brain trust, the connectors around Damus, Noster, the most popular implementation, I think. Is that what I'm told? It's the one I use, so
okay.
there you go.
There's a few of them. There's Primal, Damus, yeah.
Okay. So how are things going in Noster world? How's the community growing? What new tools are coming in place? What do you got for us today?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like very much like the early days of Bitcoin. It's like slow. It's steady, and maybe even sometimes feels flatline, but the builders are not slowing down. So like there's more and more apps, more and more use cases every day. Now we're just like waiting like for the next wave of users to start using the tools. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff happening.
Well, what I've liked recently are these new dedicated content streams that are coming. You've got people like American Hodl that are out there producing Noster-only content, and I think you're going to start to see a lot more of that. There's a big, just like people give sort of discounts in business if you pay in Bitcoin in the Bitcoin world, it seems like there's this sort of premium that comes with speaking with a Bitcoin-only audience. So what's it like dealing with these audiences that are, they're peculiar in their own ways, they have their own tastes, but they're very, very engaged, right? Bitcoin is, after all, a network of peers, and you find a lot of these peers. The network is architected, in your case, the same way as Bitcoin, it really is the peer-to-peer information network, made explicit. I always try to correct Satoshi about a peer-to-peer electronic cash network, which is true. I try to make it cute by saying it's an information network, but you guys have really fundamentally done the information network.
It's true, yeah. I mean, we see Nostr as a very complementary thing toward Bitcoin. Bitcoin can sometimes seem abstract and not, it's really hard to grasp for some people, like this idea of like, what is a Bitcoin? Is it in my hardware wallet? Is it in the blockchain? Like, what is it? Whereas like Nostr is the first time you can actually experience Bitcoin. You can see sats flow on your post. So I think it's going to be like one of those things that can really drive Bitcoin adoption, just because it makes them a lot more tangible. You can actually feel it and experience it.
And you did get you have, and it keeps growing, the market penetration in Japan and right here in Hong Kong. These have been very vibrant markets for you guys. Do you see a lot of localization of growth like that?
It's funny because actually I was on a call with our team the other day, and we were looking at the stats on our relay, like where everyone's connecting from, and there's been a huge surge in Australia recently.
Really?
So it seems to happen whenever there's some type of new event, like some type of, I don't exactly know what's going on in Australia. It might be some like censorship event or something. But that's what tends to happen. You'll see these spikes depending on if there's more like government intervention in that country. So
amazing.
It's kind of cool to see that.
Yeah, no kidding. So what's your role with the business anyway?
We also build our decentralized cyber stack on Noster.
Okay.
I'm called Yaki Hone.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I'm Yaki Hone founder Wendy.
Excellent.
She's the founder, yeah.
Oh, wow.
So you think of like Substack, like long form articles on Nostr.
Oh, amazing.
Just really focusing on that. Yeah.
And Bitcoiners love that kind of stuff, right? Bitcoiners are producing long form content all the time. I think we have the autism flare up all the time with these really in-depth,
to say the least. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. So that's live now and deployed.
Yeah, we live for 2 years.
Oh,
2 years
really?
ago.
Okay. Wow. I'm going to start contributing. I didn't know this was possible. That we have Substack implementations. That's great.
But that's the beautiful thing about Nostr is that, at Damus, like we don't really focus on a really focused rating experience for long form articles. We're just like we're mostly focused on microblogs. But they've set up a really nice, place where you can compose these things. And because it's Nostr, they'll show up on Primal, they'll show up on Damus. So it all works together.
Yeah. Wow, amazing stuff. So what else do we have as far as new features and products that's going to come on these platforms soon? I know a lot has been added in the past few years. It seems like there's always more. Everyone keeps telling me the new BitChat is
it's Nostr. So Jack's been vibe coding this feature, which is like called geohash communication. So depending on where you are in the world, you can actually like chat with people in your area, and it's using Nostr relays to enable that functionality.
Because I played around with it. It's pretty neat to see these little communities pop up in different parts of the world, and suddenly, because I haven't been in one where I've felt a lot of network connectivity, but I've looked for those where they are.
Well, I always recommend if you want to try BitChat, try it at like a Bitcoin conference. Like if you're sitting at a talk, sometimes everyone will just open up BitChat and everyone's like talking about the talk. In the area because it's all Bluetooth, right? And also like on airplanes is kind of a cool use case. Also protests. So there's lots of really interesting use cases for that type of communications technology. So we're just starting to see like new type of innovation based around Nostr and Bluetooth and stuff. So
and what else are we working on right now?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that we are focusing on, at least at Nostr, is like one of the biggest complaints is focusing on a Nostr, like I'm like the protocol CEO. Like we are a community and we work together. And one of the things we recognize is that communities is something that's severely lacking, because right now the community is just like a bunch of Bitcoiners, and so when people join the first time and all they hear is they see a bunch of Bitcoiners talk and they want to talk about other things, it's kind of hard to find content. So building like individual communities, and I know Yakihan has been doing that as well, focusing on building communities. So that's kind of a very common theme amongst all the apps right now. Yeah.
And where are you guys based? Where are you working out of?
Oh, actually, we're also based global.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And me and my tech team in Malaysia, and also my other teams in Europe, like this.
Wow, I've got lots of long form. What about novels? Is that going to be a thing? I'm a big believer that we got to start. The content coming out of fiat publications like Disney are such garbage and trash now. That Bitcoiners really have to start affecting culture and creating these types of science fiction stories and Bitcoin-focused stories. Is there a world for that on Nostr?
I think so. I talked about this a couple of years ago. Like, what would it look like for a book to be on Nostr? Like, maybe you'd publish like a chapter or a page, and then those would all be linked together. And you could just publish an entire book on Nostr if you. There's no reason why you couldn't do that. And then you can have really cool like interactive e-readers for Nostr books. So like that could be a really cool way to publish books.
Yeah, no kidding.
So no one's really done it yet, but someone should.
Because you can, I guess, facilitate an interface that would look like an Amazon type Kindle.
And then you would do highlights. Like we have this concept on Nostr called the highlights. So if you highlight a web page or you highlight a long form post or short, you can actually take snippets and broadcast them onto the network. So you could also do that with ebooks. So we have Nostr ebooks, broadcast highlights, and you can share like snippets of text. And then, and not only that, like you could get zapped for like a page in your book if they really like that one page. Like there's a lot of cool things you could do since zaps are integrated into everything, right?
Well, I've got several Bitcoin science fiction books that I'm going to look into Yakihone to use, because I've got one called The Satoshi Wedding Murders, the Blue Moon Orange Coin. I got a couple fun stories out there. So
that's cool.
Should be a place for it. So
I hope so.
Now, we love long form publishing, but unfortunately we have short form content today due to the time constraints at the end of the day. So I thank you so much for your time today. And we'll see you tomorrow at the event. And we got to have you both on the show again sometimes with RoxomTV. We would love it.
And if day one, I'm doing a presentation, one of the first talks, come to my talk. It's our Damus announcement. We have something very special we're going to release tomorrow. So
you got the alpha here, guys.
Be there.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us this evening, and we'll see you again.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
The future of capital markets runs on Bitcoin. Introducing Roxom, the first ever exchange where Bitcoiners can trade treasury stocks entirely in BTC. Get exposure to top Bitcoin holding companies like MicroStrategy and Metaplanet, priced in Bitcoin from the start. No fiat, no middlemen. This is what financial freedom looks like. Early access now live at roxom.com/treasuries. Built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners.
Welcome back to the highest bar in the world. We're at the top of the Ritz-Carlton here in Hong Kong. We're at Bitcoin Asia in Hong Kong. This is the RoxomTV studio. We're opening a new studio here in Hong Kong, and I'm joined by two great friends of mine who have been on a whirlwind roller coaster Bitcoin experience, Bitcoin changing their lives like we've never seen. I was with you guys, just to give our audience a bit of context, I was with you guys on a porch in Dubai in May, and you had this crazy idea together. You said, why don't we become a Bitcoin treasury company?
Yes.
And then, boom, we have the first Bitcoin treasury company in the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, and the Middle East.
And the Middle East. And so tell us a bit about the business and the choice and how you came to that.
Well, it's called Al Abraj Restaurants Group, based in Bahrain. We've been there for 40 years, just under 40 years ago. It was a family business. We went public in December of 24. In a traditional way, just to expand the restaurant business and so on and so forth. And then Q1 this year, started thinking of this thing slowly but surely. And then come May, Umar's in Dubai. Just happens to be that you were there, and our friend Austin as well. And we said, you know what, let's just do something, you know. I flew over that same night. I met with all of you guys. We had like 3 days where we didn't leave the apartment, right? Literally 3 days. We stayed in there and brainstormed, and then took it off from there. So the past 3 months have been whirlwind. Yeah, we went and adopted a Bitcoin treasury strategy for the public company, first in the Middle East, and bought Bitcoin, tested it out, tried to be as we didn't know exactly how the reaction was going to be legally, whatever, but we just go for it and see how it goes. But it turns out to be that it's fine. There is a way, you know. And I think this past 3 months were hectic, to say the least. But the next 3 months, I think, was where we'll see things really kicking in. So that's what we're going to do. Amazing.
And Omar, of course, you were our host there. And, that's kind of how I see Dubai, as this centerpiece in that whole area. In some places in the world where people are just coming, and founders are coming, people looking for capital are coming. And you've been in Dubai all this time. You've seen Bitcoin grow. What's it like for you all these years working in Dubai, and now seeing these real commercial relationships form around Bitcoin, and things growing in Dubai, changing the world? So, what's it to you as someone who loves Dubai?
Absolutely, yeah. So for me, honestly, it's very refreshing to see it reach what it has reached today. Obviously, as you know, us being Bitcoiners, we've been on this front since 2016 or even before that. So honestly, we're so blessed from God that we have such great leadership. And they've had a very clear vision when it comes to these things, Like, for example, we had the Ministry of AI from 2016, I believe, in 2017. So Sheikh Mohammed